Talk and rock radio, where friends meet at the intersection of life, inspiration, and music. Here's your host, Rick Kern.
Give me a ticket for an airplane. Ain't got time to take a fast train. Lonely days are gone, I'm a going home. Baby, just roll me a letter. I don't care how much money I gotta spend. Got to get back to my baby again. Lonely days are gone, I'm a going home. Baby, just roll me a letter. She wrote me a letter, said she couldn't live without me no more. Listen, mister, can't you see I got to get back to my baby once more. Anyway, yeah, give me a ticket for an aeroplane. Ain't got time to take a fast train. Lonely days are gone, I'm going home. My baby just wrote me a letter. She wrote me a letter, said she couldn't live without me no more. Listen, mister, can't you see I got to get back to my baby once more. Anyway, yeah, give me a ticket for an aeroplane. Ain't got time to take a fast train. Lonely days are gone, I'm a going home. My baby just wrote me a letter. Said my baby just wrote me a letter.
Welcome, everyone, to Talk and Rock Radio. Joining us today are two founding members of the legendary group whose number one song, The Letter, I must have played several hundred times in my 60s cover bands. Welcome, Bill Cunningham and Gary Talley of the Box Tops. How you doing, guys?
Thanks,
Great.
Rick. Doing good.
So glad that you could join up with us today. I've been looking forward to doing this episode with you guys. I guess the best way to kick this thing off is let's talk about the beginning of the Box Tops. You guys were originally called Ronnie and the DeVilles, is that right?
Well,
Yeah.
the DeVilles, it was originally Ronnie and the DeVilles, but Ronnie left and the band was called the DeVilles, and different people were leaving and coming in and all that stuff. And Gary and I were in it at the time when it was still called the DeVilles.
And that all took place in right in Memphis, or where was it?
Yeah, Memphis.
All right. Well, of course, your number one hit song, The Letter. Let's talk about how it got so big. Either one of you jump in there and talk about it.
I don't know how it got so big, but it did.
Yeah, I don't know either, but it really took off. And I remember us playing and starting out traveling on the road as it was climbing the charts at first, and we were driving I don't remember what it was, like a Chevy. Remember what the name of the make of the Chevy? Well, the Chevy.
We had a GMC Suburban that we drove a lot.
There you go, and pulled a trailer, right?
Yeah.
And then that lasted for probably, well, certainly more than a few weeks, but about a month or 6 weeks, and then we started getting into something else, and then before long we were flying everywhere. So that's sort of what it felt like.
You know, there's a movie that Tom Hanks did called That Thing You Do, and of course, when you guys had that big hit, did you all have one of those just huge moments where you're driving along in your vehicle and all of a sudden you're hearing your song being played on the AM radio? Can you relate to that?
The first time I heard it, we were in a station wagon and we were driving somewhere around Knoxville, and I think that's one of the first stations that started playing it. It was the top 40 station in Knoxville, and that was a a big, well, that was a memorable thing. I think it's the first time I'd heard it.
Yeah, and there's a funny story related to that particular period. We were driving through Knoxville going up to Philadelphia because the record had broken in Philadelphia. And so we went up to do a big television show up in Philadelphia. And we came back and we heard it playing even more. And it turns out our road manager was friends with one of the DJs at the Knoxville station. And he told me he stopped for gas, but he called his friend and told him not to play it so often because the guys would catch on, because he had set it up so he would play it a few times. And by the time we had driven back through Knoxville, which wasn't very long, we only stayed about 3 days in Philadelphia, the record was taken off. And he said, "No, man, this thing is like out of control."
Wow. That's cool. That's really cool. And of course, your Cry Like a Baby, that hit number 2. Talk about that one.
Bobby Goldsboro. He stopped us from the number 1 position.
Yeah, I know.
With Honey, I like Bobby Goldsboro fine. I have nothing against him. But
I
Honey,
do too. I did an interview with him a couple years ago. He's a good guy. He's a good artist also.
yeah, yes.
Yeah. I'm always interested in hearing about the music influences that contribute to an artist's sound and in their original music. Talk a little bit about who you guys' influences were back in the day.
Well, influences on guitar earlier were probably Chet Atkins first, and then James Burton and Dwayne Eddy after that. Those were my first ones. And then I didn't even know them at the time, but the music they were making in Memphis, the soul music, that was coming out, and it was people like Reggie Young and Steve Cropper. And before I knew who they were, I was already stealing those licks from them, on all the R&B songs. And so those were my first influences, I guess.
Yeah. And I guess mine, as far as bass goes, were Doug Dunn, which is probably not a surprise, being part of Booker T and the MGs and the Stax House Band, and also Tommy Cogbill, who was ended up being one of our producers toward the end of the 60s.
Of course, when I listen to Cry Like a Baby, and of course it's always a major part of that song as far as the Eastern music influence with the sitar sound in there, that is so unique in itself. Was that your idea, Gary, on that?
No, that was it was our producer's Dan Penn's idea, but Reggie Young, the great studio guitar player that I mentioned before, he's the one that played the electric sitar on Cry Like a Baby.
Please welcome the Box Tops.
first time he'd ever played it, and he wound up playing the very same one and on the same sitar on B.J. Thomas's "Hooked on a Feeling."
Excellent. The days in Memphis, early days in Memphis. What are some of y'all's best recollections of those days? Even pre Box Tops or after Box Tops, for that matter.
Well, one of my favorite things was that there were so many teen clubs, and everybody was playing. It seemed like almost everyone was in a band, and every weekend, someone was playing somewhere, or we were competing against other people. As a matter of fact, one of the bands I played in competed against the DeVilles, Ronnie and the DeVilles.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was the drummer of Ronnie and the DeVilles was the founding member, Danny Smythe, who was our original drummer. And so I was competing against him in another band at that time. So it was, but it just seemed like, all the teen clubs, all the places we could play, all the music that was happening. It was really a magical time in Memphis.
Well, and you lived in a town that was magical in itself because you had so many great places there. You had Sun, you had Stax, you had Ardent, you had High, and a lot of my musician friends from El Paso traversed and went over there and recorded at those studios. One of them even worked there for many years, and you all know him, Terry Manning. He's a dear friend of mine, and
I worked with Terry a lot.
And in fact, right after you guys, you all did a reunion there at the. We were just talking about it a moment ago at the City Winery in New York, and Terry was your fourth member on that reunion for Alex Chilton, right? The tribute show that you all did.
That was the memorial for Alex, and Terry happened to be there, and he said, can I help? And we said, sure. So he came and played keyboard and sang backing vocals with us. Really
nice. That's great. Well, you both have had interesting career paths, not just being a famous box top, but why don't you start, Bill, and talk a little bit about some of the career things that you've done? I mean, you've got some phenomenal history. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, musically, when I got out of the box tops, I began to study immediately classical music and got a degree in classical music, playing upright bass. I also play cello, and I also play harp, oddly enough. That's a longer story. But so I ended up playing with the Memphis Symphony, and I would sub every once in a while, and Jackson, Mississippi Symphony, the Nashville Symphony, and the Little Rock Symphony. So anything within about 250 miles of Memphis. And I played with a number of different people, Van Cliburn, Itzhak Perlman. I did television specials with Mikhail Baryshnikov. I worked with Jim Henson's Muppets and some television specials, and just a assortment of people.
It's incredible. How about you, Gary?
Well, right after quitting the box tops, it was in 1970, I started doing studio work in Memphis at Sounds of Memphis Studios originally, and then we did records for on Billy Lee Riley, the guy that did Flying Saucers Rock and Roll and all that. And David Allan Coe's first record, which was a blues album, and did a record with Ace Cannon, and then at Universal we did a record with Jerry Butler, and this was all just studio guitar work. Then I moved to Atlanta in '71 and worked with Billy Joe Royal and the Atlanta Rhythm Section and Paul Davis and a lot of people around there, Joe South, and Tennessee Ernie Ford would come and play, and I would play guitar with him. And so I did a lot of jingles, like we did Coke jingles and McDonald's and Dodge vans and a bunch of bank jingles and a lot of stuff like that. and a lot of live playing around Atlanta, and then moved to Nashville in '81. Chips Moman, our old producer and studio guy from Memphis, he got me to move to Nashville, and I started doing sessions in Nashville and played with Tammy Wynette and Webb Pierce and Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings and Tim McGraw and Randy Travis and a bunch of people like that. And then I played with different bands that recorded and toured out of Nashville. I played with Tracy Nelson, the blues singer. She was great, and did gigs with Sam with Sam Moore from Sam and Dave, who I'd met back in Memphis years ago, and William Bell, also from Memphis, and played with just a lot of different artists, Frida Payne and John Phillips from the Mamas and Papas, and just a whole bunch of different people, and just did a lot of different studio work and touring until the Box Tops got back together at the very end of '96, and that's when Bill called everybody and got us back together again.
I would like for you guys to share probably in your mind some of the most standout moments of being a Box Top, and this can be anything from one of your biggest shows, biggest audiences, whatever comes to mind.
Well, like doing the Tonight Show was a big deal for me that sticks out. And we got to do 2 songs on the Tonight Show, and Johnny Carson was there. And I had this habit of yawning when I got nervous, to try to, like, maybe I thought I was covering up the fact I was nervous. Anyway, we did a song, and then they went to commercial, and then I yawned, and Johnny Carson looked over there and said, "Are we keeping you up?" So,
and this was recorded at like 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, right?
Oh, yeah, the afternoon.
It's
Yeah.
taped and broadcast it later,
That's funny.
that's one of the things that sticks out in my mind. And touring with the Beach Boys, that was another big thing.
How about you, Bill?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing about the Beach Boys, touring with them, because we got to be good friends with them, and it was a real honor and privilege and all that. When we first came out, and the letter was going, up the charts really quickly in early '67. Brian Wilson actually called our management and asked that we join the Beach Boys on tour. So he literally was asking. He wasn't touring at that time. He was doing the Smile album, I think, the Smiley Smile. He was trying to mix that. So, but Good Vibrations was out and everything. But they were touring, but he specifically asked for us to join them on tour. Privilege. Yeah.
What an honor that must have been to do that, man. I mean, Beach Boys, they're legendary, and I did a show with the Cowsills, friends of yours, last year, and of course John plays drums with them now, with the Beach Boys, and really, really does a great job. Tremendous group to this day. They're just you never get tired of the Beach Boys. And speaking of touring, in 2017 and as well in 2022, you guys were both part of the Happy Together tour and played with 5 of the just A-list, groups of all time. What was that like, getting back together and performing again after all those years of not playing as a Box Top, but all of a sudden coming back? How did that feel, and what were the audience reactions to you guys?
Gary, you want to take?
I thought it was great. I loved it. It was everybody on the tour was wonderful. Everybody got along great, and we hung out with each other and, made friends with the people that we didn't already know. And the audiences were great. It was just a total positive experience for me. And we toured all over the country, the East Coast and the West Coast and the Midwest and a little bit in the South. But and one of the good things about that is we played in so many different places that I got to see a lot of old friends along the way who had moved out to California or Arizona or someplace. So not only was it a reunion with the people in the bands, that it was a reunion with a lot of my old friends around the country that I hadn't seen in years. So it was just great. Oh, and I had my 70th birthday at the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville on the Happy Together tour.
Nice.
And we all sang happy birthday to him. And that included Chuck Negron of the Three Dog Night, Howard Kalen was there, Mark Volman was there from the Turtles, and just Ron Dante from the Archies and the Cufflinks and the Cowsills and everybody right there. And Gary, what happened on your 21st birthday?
On the 21st birthday, on my 21st, we were on a Beach Boys tour. I think maybe Indianapolis or someplace like that. Anyway, so I was in my hotel room after the gig, and I heard a knock on the door, and it was Bill and Carl and Dennis and I think Al, at least two or three of the Beach Boys, with an orange cake, and they sang, and the Beach Boys and Bill sang "Happy Birthday" to me on my 21st birthday.
Did they sing it in harmony, Gary?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Great.
Beautiful harmony. You should have heard it.
Oh man, I bet that was incredible. Too bad there was probably there wasn't any cell phones those days. So man, that would have been something to have forever. Wow.
It sure would.
You mentioned the Cowsills. They're Paul and Bob and Susan. They're all so super people, really. One of my most fun shows was doing one with those guys. And, you mentioned a lot of the names, Ron Dante and everybody a little while ago. Out of everybody that you have toured with on these two tours, I have done interviews with, except for Chuck Negron. I've been trying to get Chuck for a couple of years now, and I've talked to his wife, Amy. He does his own show. But if you guys have any pull, please let Chuck know that this drummer from many years ago who used to play his music is still dying to do a show with him, man. He is one of my heroes of all time. So,
Yeah, he's great. He's a nice guy. I don't think we have more pull than Amy, though.
Yeah.
Amy would be enough pull. But boy, he sure sounded great when we were out with him.
That's great, man. The guy is just, like I said, one of my heroes. We were always strong vocally, and so when we did the Three Dog Night harmonies and stuff, you never got tired of doing, One Is the Loneliest Number or Celebrate or any of them, man. Even or Jeremiah,
Eli's coming.
Oh, the best, and I mean, when they were the original three, I mean, to me, that was just the epitome of golden era of rock and roll. I just loved Three Dog Night live when we saw them. It was just, that was when their Suitable for Framing album had just come out, I think, when we saw them, and I thought, this is going to be for sure one of my favorites for a long time.
We played with them, and not to prolong this, but we played with them in San Diego, and I think it was '68, and the Turtles were on the show, Sonny and Cher were on the show, the Buffalo Springfield were on the show.
Nice.
Maybe even the Birds, but it was probably down to 3 Birds at that time. And it was just, packed with all kind of people, particularly West Coast groups and people stuff.
Yeah.
But it was really fun. And so we got to hang out backstage with all these people too, which was another fun experience.
Now, there's some more heroes, man. I mean, Richie Furay, Poco, Buffalo Springfield. Yeah. And those guys, they're musicians that I worked with here in El Paso that rubbed elbows with those guys too. Randy Fuller of the Bobby Fuller Four, he and Richie Furay, they all knew each other very well, and it's a neat history. But when I do these shows, I really like to promote what you guys have out there. And I know on your GaryTalley.com, you can go on there, ladies and gentlemen, and get a guitar lesson from the famous Gary Talley. If you're interested in learning how to play guitar, he's one of the best. And I have to say, I love watching the videos of you and Nita when you're doing the songs, man. They're just so great. Is she still with us, Gary?
Yeah, she's 96 now, and we just recorded at Mother's Day. We recorded about 5 new songs, and so we're going to keep doing them as long as she feels like it. And she's just really full of energy and singing great, and she gets cards and letters from all over the world now. She's a big star, so she she likes that.
You know, when I think it was last week when I saw it for the first time when she was doing Tennessee Waltz, and it brought back, I mean, it just opened up a floodgate of memories, because all my aunts and uncles on my mom's side were all very musically talented. And I remember when I was about 10 or 11 years old, on the weekends, on a Sunday, we'd get together at a good friend's house. He played really great guitar, and of course my mom sang, and then her brothers both played guitar. But I remember her singing Tennessee Waltz. To this day, I could just vividly remember her doing that. And when I saw you guys doing it together, especially at the end where you guys, hit that harmony together, man, it just killed it for me. I loved it,
I was dancing with my darling to the Tennessee Waltz when an old friend I happened to see. I introduced her to my darling, and while they were dancing, my friend stole my sweetheart from me. I remember the night and the Tennessee Waltz. Now I know just how much I have lost. Yes, I lost my little darling the night they were playing the beautiful Tennessee Waltz. The beautiful Tennessee Waltz.
Yay, we finally got the harmony.
The young lady that sang with you on that, is she a friend, or is she relative, or who is she?
She is a friend. Her name is Belinda Leslie, and she's a real good close friend of mine and friend of the family.
Well, it's like you all have been singing together for a long time, because the harmony was really good. I really loved it when she said, "And we finally got it right."
Yeah.
That was a cool moment. That was
It's funny because when we sing, we don't usually rehearse anything, and we just kind of grab whatever harmony note that sounds right, and I think we did it a couple of times and that's not quite right. Let's do it again. So sometimes we get it the first try, and sometimes we have to do it over again a couple of times.
Yeah. Well, once again, GaryTalley.com, for those of you all who want to check out that site. There's some cool stuff on there. How about you, Bill? You got any site you want to promote?
I don't have a site personally, but the group has a site, which is boxtops.com.
Before we move out of this episode, guys, I just wanted to ask you if there's any additional stories or anecdotes or anything that you'd like to share with the audience.
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, there's all kind of things that we did back in the 60s that were interesting,
Well, I'll tell you a funny one, just so it ends on at least a story. So my dad used to work for Sun Records with Sam Phillips, and when Elvis was looking for a manager before Parker, Sam had sent Elvis over to our house, and my brother and I were, shushed out of the house so that they could have a conference there. My dad turned Elvis down, and Elvis came out, and he had one of his Cadillacs in the driveway, and it didn't start. And so my brother and me, and I was really little, and another sort of teenage guy that was around in the neighborhood friend, and Elvis all pushed his Cadillac out of our driveway, backed it out of the driveway. And Elvis had the door open and turned the steering wheel and lined it up with the street. And then we all pushed it forward. Elvis jumped in, popped the clutch, and it cranked, and he shut the door and drove off. So, and when I told that story once to one of the guys, well, actually, Rick Levy, you interviewed him a little while ago, and he said, "Do you mean you're telling me that you helped give Elvis his start?"
I love that.
But that's a true story. But it's
that's great, man. You need to write a book and get that in there.
Yeah. Well, anyway, there's a story for you. So
I love it. I love it. How about you, Gary? Any closing thoughts?
No, I'm just so delighted that we're still doing it after all these years, and I'm really happy with the way the band sounds now, and I hope everybody gets a chance to hear us. And we made
come out and see us. If we're in your area, please, you won't regret it. It'll be a fun time because we're having fun.
Are you coming? Are you coming to Texas anytime soon? Anything going over this direction?
We are to New Brunswick.
Oh, that's right, at Brontex, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's a nice theater there too. It's
great. Yeah.
And also during the pandemic, we made a CD of the songs. Mainly, we made it to so people that came to our shows would have, a souvenir of the show, and you can get that on our website also.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right, great. Well, I want to thank you guys for doing this. I want to tell you that it means so much to me that you guys are keeping your legacy alive, doing these shows, willing to come on and share your great stories with me today. You guys are a vital part of the golden era of rock and roll. And it was truly the best of times with the best of years of music that will never die or be forgotten, and I just I wanted to share that with you. I really appreciate you guys being a part of Talkin' Rock Radio.
Well, thank you so much.
It was fun.
Thank you, guys, and keep doing it, man. It's great.
Okay, hope we get to see you in person.
Well, me too, man. It'd be a lot of fun. You guys take care and be safe, okay?
Okay,
you too. Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
All right.